Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, directed by Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rotham, is an animated Spider-Man film that takes place in modern day and primarily follows Miles Morales. Miles is a young kid adjusting to a new school, and one night he gets bitten by a radioactive spider, giving him superpowers. However, things get even more complicated for Miles after there has been a rip in the space-time continuum, and various iterations of Spider-Man or Spider-People begin appearing in Miles' world. As Miles attempts to learn the ropes from the more experienced Spider-People, the team attempts to stop the evil Wilson Fisk from achieving his dangerous end goals. Alright, so Into the Spider-Verse was a film that I had seen advertised a few times here and there, but it never really grabbed me enough to make me feel like I had to go see it. I got the impression that it would be a fun but fairly simplistic animated Spider-Man film that would, likely lack the drama and even the comedy necessary to make this a worthwhile experience for adult viewers. It wasn't until I heard the incredible buzz that was coming out about the film that I was like, okay, I guess I should probably make time for this one. And I'm really glad I did, because this is the best animated film of 2018. And one of the best films of the year, period. Into the Spider-Verse provides a lot of versatility, and it does so in a way that feels stylish and effortless. There's a lot about this story that'll make you laugh, and there's also a lot that'll excite you, and there's also a lot that'll, tug at your heartstrings. Ultimately, this movie is super well-rounded and enjoyable for basically any age group, and I kind of expected it to be, a kid-centric type film. I feel like kids will love it, obviously. Adults will love it, die-hard Marvel fans, casual Marvel fans, and especially avid comic book readers, because there seems to be a lot of reliance on telling a unique comic book-driven story that offers plenty of quality references. If I had to describe it, I'd say it's like a slightly more serious Lego movie for the Spider-Man universe. And I felt that way even before I knew that Lord and Miller, the directors of the Lego movie, were involved in the creative process for this film. They produced it, and Lord actually has a writing credit, which absolutely makes sense in hindsight. Into the Spider-Verse feels like you're jumping right into the pages of a comic book, which is a feat that a very small handful of films have actually been able to pull off. There's actually a lot of stylistic editing choices they make, like captioning action and splitting the screen to show multiple elements of a scene in the same way a comic book would, and even colorizing various scenes in a way that's reminiscent of a comic book. Everything about this movie feels stylish and fresh, which is a nice touch in a superhero genre that can sometimes, often simply repeat a formula. This isn't to say that the narrative isn't standard in a sense, but the way that the story is told is what allows it to stand out in the crowd. There's an intelligence to it, a self-awareness to it that allows the film to break down the barriers between the characters and the audience, and it's super engaging in that way. And I also found the movie to just be absolutely hilarious. There's a very effective balancing act that goes on that balances the more self-aware yet still dramatic aspects of Miles' origin story. Yet, that also at the same time, they play to those comedic tones that offer fun and enjoyment for the audience and sort of mock the superhero genre and Spider-Man in a way, but in a loving kind of way. I found the writing to be consistently clever and consistently funny. There's very few aspects about this film that feel overly kiddish. I think this, again, is one of the, great animated films, in the sense that it appeases a wide array of audiences. And the comedy is fairly general and not specific to any one age group, I'd say. It's clever, it's self-aware in that it plays to the commonalities among superhero origin stories. And it's silly in a way that allows the film to retain a level of ridiculousness for entertainment purposes. The comedy is really great here, but so is the animation. Now, this is a form of stop animation, so it takes a bit to adjust to the early stages, to get adjusted to the type of animation you're seeing. But after that first scene, you'll be good and you'll be locked in and kind of good to go. That's how it was for me, at least. And honestly, after that, I was pretty wowed by how excellent this film is designed. I mean, this is definitely one of the coolest looking films I've seen in quite a while for an animated film. I love the vibrancy of the world. I love the colors around. I love the way the characters swing around and battle within that world. And even the character design and their expressions and such all looks really cool and stylistic. This is a visual marvel of a film. And I was honestly pretty shocked with how dynamic and exciting its visual offerings were. I'd say this movie will pretty likely find itself in the conversation for best visual effects for 2018. And also another thing, the voice acting is also tremendous. It starts with Shameik Moore, who plays Miles, and he's honestly a perfect fit for this role. His voice acting provides a vulnerability and a heroism to Miles in all of his inexperience. The cast is actually surprisingly loaded, and everyone's great here. Jake Johnson from New Girl plays Peter Parker, Miles' mentor, and he brings a lot of quality comedy to his role as well. Mahershala Ali is in this movie, Hailee Steinfeld, Nicolas Cage, John Mulaney, Brian Tyree Henry, who plays Miles' father. I hadn't actually heard of him before, but he was awesome too, and he's one you'll definitely notice. The voice acting is great through and through. and it added to the investment I had in these characters because they felt like real and genuine people, yet also like comic book characters in that same sense. I also want to discuss the origin story here though. I'm not entirely sure if I've told you guys this before, but I'm not always the biggest fan of origin stories when they're not precisely executed. I like seeing the abilities of a superhero, marveling at their unique powers and how formidable they are, and origin stories usually have to wait and be patient, for the opportune moment for the hero to come into their own and sort of display those abilities. I'm not always the most patient when it comes to that, but here I felt the execution of Miles Morales' origin story was pretty damn spot on. He's unsure of himself, he's still growing into his abilities and skill set, and he struggles for a great deal of this film. I found his struggles to be important because they illustrate that you can't become the hero overnight. Miles is a very likable character and he's sympathetic in a lot of ways. You want him to succeed because he's clearly an awesome kid with a good heart and he just wants to do the right thing. I really love watching his maturation and eventual transformation into the Spider-Man he was meant to be. One of the best parts of this movie is simply spending time with Miles outside of the Spider-Man suit, watching him learn and grow. That balance is always there, like I mentioned. My only criticism of this film, and I really only have one thing I want to criticize it for, is that I don't love the villain. They elect to go with Wilson Fisk here, and he does have, a proper motivation for what he's trying to do, but I found his character to be overly cartoonish. I never found him to be an integral part of the story or, integral part of my investment in the story. I think it's just because there's not much time devoted to him, but I think everything else about him, from his overall design to his simple backstory, just didn't quite work for me. Overall though, I found Into the Spider-Verse a great time and a very, very well-made film. As for the pros cons, I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse delivers excellent characters and voice acting, some amazingly vibrant animation, plenty of great comedy and drama, and a perfectly executed origin story. As for the cons, I'd say just the villain. I didn't love Fisk, but that's my only complaint here. I'm going to give Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse a 9.5 out of 10, and definitely recommend you check this one out in theaters because it's one hell of a time. It surprised me and turned out to be really great. So did you guys see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite Spider-Man himself. And I don't mean like favorite version of Spider-Man from this film. I mean, who is your favorite Spider-Man like actor-wise? For me, it's Tom Holland. I just feel like he's embodied the character of Peter Parker better than anyone else has thus far. But there are some good options to choose from, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Either way, this is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next video.